Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhuta Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatadishvatanine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gau Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So starting with the last chapter of the series, 18th chapter, we've titled it as The Art of Perfection. Here in this chapter, Lord Shri Krishna would share his Paramam Vachaha, which means the conclusive and the concluding words. The highest truths will be conveyed by Lord in this final chapter. In one sense, as we met last time, I made a point that Bhagavad Gita in one sense completed in the previous chapter, 17th chapter, when 17th chapter concluded with Om Tat Sat. Let there be all auspiciousness, let all our endeavors be offered as a service for the pleasure of the Lord, and let there be all auspiciousness and success in our endeavors. That's the meaning of Om Tat Sat, like that. So question arises, why there is a need for 18th chapter? Just like in the second chapter, Bhagavad Gita was kind of a preview of all the things that Arjuna may ask later on. That was the second chapter. Whereas in the 18th chapter, whatever have been discussed would be summarized. You would have an experience when you're having a conversation. What we have is the written format, but it's actually a conversation which has been later on presented in written format. So how many of you have an experience when you have had a very important, and if it is an emotionally surcharging and technically deep subject matter, where there are chances the other person might have missed out on certain information, while you come to the concluding points, you kind of summarize everything, just to make sure the other person have understood, isn't it? It's something what happens here. In fact, the summarization doesn't begin by Krishna, it begins with Arjuna, where Arjuna asks again one of the interesting subject matter. Okay, before I get into this, I just had this slide over here just to help you with the connection, and ask a question and then I'll continue with my conversation. In order to emphasize the goal of all Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is now going to summarize more or less everything what he told. In every chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna stresses, just a quick recap, what is the major emphasis of Lord Shri Krishna across all the different chapters or in the conversation of Arjuna so far. Let me give the option. All of you can see clearly? And I'll read out the option. Whichever you think is the most suited according to you, please raise your hand for that. Do your duty and leave the rest to Almighty. Is that what is the message of Bhagavad Gita? Well, some say so. Devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. First of all, why did Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita? The context of Krishna speaking Bhagavad Gita was not to help Arjuna overcome his dilemma. That was not the context, that was a pretext. The context is presented by Krishna himself in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Imam Vivasvate Yogam, where Krishna says, I gave this transcendental knowledge millions of years ago to the sun god, and sun god spoke it to Manu, Manu spoke it to Ikshvaku. And this knowledge was received evam parampara praptam imam rajarishaya viduhu sakalaneha mahata yoganashta parantarva. This knowledge was received in disciplic succession, but with time, this knowledge called as yoga, Krishna says, evam parampara praptam imam rajarishaya viduhu sakalaneha mahata yoga nashta parantapa. So Krishna speaks about this whole educational system was established by him, and this knowledge was known by the word yoga, which we know as karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, hatha yoga, dhyana yoga, buddhi yoga, bhakti yoga, and so forth, various forms of yogas. And it was lost And now I am telling you to re-establish. Now Krishna has his own agenda. Here Krishna is not standing there to actually clarify the doubts of Arjuna. The doubts that arose in the mind of Arjuna was nothing but the will of Krishna, as he expresses in the 11th canto of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, as a Virat Roop, I have already destroyed the whole Kuru Vamsha. Then Arjuna said, what am I supposed to do? Nimitta matram bhavasavesachi. Yet you become the instrument of my grace. You get up, pick up the weapon and fight. Arjuna said, why do I need to fight when you have already done it? Krishna says, well, what I want anyway is going to happen. But you become the grace of my instrument of my grace. Similarly, Krishna had to establish Bhagavad Gita. And he took or made Arjuna as his instrument of his grace, where Arjuna got a dilemma which he had never had in his life after spending good 88 years in his life in this world. He was 89 years old when this conversation happened. Never ever he had such a kind of a doubt where he's confused about what is his duty. This is very bizarre. So many scholars, when they discuss on subject matter, they express a surprise. How can Arjuna have a doubt at this point of time for which he prepared so much? 5 years he went on the heavenly planets to prepare for the war which was impending. And now, on the battlefield, you say you're not going to fight? This is not a normal course of action, but that was the will of the Lord, so that an query will happen and Krishna would have the opportunity to once again establish the divine yoga system which has got lost over a period of time. Arjuna asked, my dear Lord, why me? What qualification do I have that you've chosen me to speak this? Bhakto sime sakha cheti. So today, 18th chapter is a huge chapter, but I'm only going to speak on one theme. What was the message of Krishna, or what he wanted to establish? Now, what he wanted to establish, Krishna himself says what he wanted to establish. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkatam dharma samsapanarthaya sambhavam yuga. I descend to establish dharma. So Krishna is speaking this Bhagavad Gita to establish dharma. The question is, what is that dharma that Krishna is establishing? This is the only subject matter for today. However, because I still have to do my duty to discuss some part of Bhagavad 18th chapter, I will still cover that. But the main theme today would be, because we are coming to the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna orchestrated this whole environmental situation for him just to speak Bhagavad Gita. Why he chose to speak Bhagavad Gita? Because he appears to establish dharma, which means Bhagavad Gita becomes the means of establishing dharma. And what is that dharma which is defined or explained in Bhagavad Gita? Because everyone today in the world have got its own definition of dharma. So what is that dharma which is established by the Lord is going to be the subject matter. So going back to the question here, that was just a theme what we have chosen for today. In every chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna stresses, once again, do your duty and leave the rest to Almighty. Is that what the major emphasis? Devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. Is that the major emphasis? Renunciation of work is supreme. Or act according to dharma and enjoy the world. What, according to you, is the major emphasis so far we have seen as spoken by Krishna? How many of you say the first option? Do your duty and leave the rest to Almighty. Okay, do your duty. Devotional service unto the Supreme Personality Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. How many of you think that is? Okay, quite few of you. Third, renunciation of work is supreme. सब कुछ त्याग दो, जंगल में चले जाओ, शहर को जंगल बना दो. वो तो वैसे ही बना चुके हैं. आजकल पशु ज़्यादा घूमते हैं मनुष्य से ज़्यादा. चौथा, act according to dharma and enjoy the world. Act according to dharma and enjoy the world. भगवद गीता पढ़ी नहीं है तभी कह रहे हो. ये महाभारत टीवी सीरियल देखने के बाद ये रियलाइजेशन निकलता है. Act according to dharma and enjoy the world. Well, what is the answer? Car park it. We'll come back to this question at the end of the session. Let's see if you can still come back to the right conclusion. All right. So, as a part of my duty, just to introduce this chapter, there is an acronym for this chapter which is SMILE. And let's, with a smiling face, enter the chapter. All right. At least kids smiled. बड़ों के तो चेहरे पे स्माइल ही नहीं आती. बच्चे खुश हो गए. All right. The first section of this chapter, which is a pretty long chapter, summary of Karma Yoga. One of the most frequently asked question, which has been again raised over here by Arjuna, is if by working in this world I would get entangled into karmic reactions. Krishna speaks about karma, akarma, and vikarma. As you sow, so shall you reap. If I act, I would reap something, which means whatever I do is going to result into a resultant reaction. So if I act is going to lead to a karmic reaction, why don't I stop acting? Why do I have to perform an action? Why don't I renounce? And this is what it started with Arjuna's first question. Should I fight or not fight? Krishna have addressed this question back and forth again many times, and now Krishna for the final time explains what is the spirit of renunciation. Arjuna is considering renunciation is far better than performing action. Because on the path of renunciation, you will at least not get entangled to the rules of this universe. It's something like if I go out on the streets of Hinjewadi, if I drive by vehicle, then police will catch me and fine me. So better I don't drive a vehicle only. If I don't drive a vehicle, no fine. This is what something Arjuna is thinking. If I don't act, I will not get a reaction. However, this is a series of verses, Krishna makes a point. Arjuna, it is not about your action or inaction. If it's somebody does not act, does not imply that is renunciation. If somebody does not act becomes renunciation, the beggars on the street who eat only once in a day will be the greatest renunciates. Yes or no? कितने महान योगी हैं दिन में सिर्फ एक बार खाते हैं भैया खाने को मिलता नहीं है इसलिए एक बार खाते हैं You're getting the understanding? Because you're not able to perform action does not mean you are renunciate. It is a state of your mind. So, renunciation means perform your duty, but do not get attached to the results of your action. When you get attached to the results of your action, then you want to exploit and enjoy it. That is what leads to karmic reaction. And therefore, Krishna speaks about the concept of karma yoga. Perform your action for the pleasure of the Supreme. Yagna arthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. All actions should be done as a sacrifice for the Supreme. If it is not done, all that will bind you. Mukta sangha samachara. Tadartham karma kaunteya. However, if you render it for me, mukta sangha, you'll be freed from all. Sangha means material association. And that way, you'll be freed. Like that, Krishna speaks about it. So, renunciation is not of action. Renunciation is of your spirit of enjoyment. That is what Krishna says, give up that. It's not going to work. Why? Many things Krishna says. I'll give an example. Krishna says, Arjuna, at no point of time you can give up activities. If you think you being a Kshatriya, you will stop fighting. Imagine you go to the forest. If somebody challenges you in the forest, then again you will pick up the weapon because you are conditioned to act. You cannot forcefully refrain from acting. Right? You understand this conditioning? And that's what. So Krishna says, Nahi deha bhrata shakyam tyaktum karmani asheshatah yastu karma phalatyagi satyagiti abhidhiyate. It is indeed impossible for an embodied being to give up all activities. But he who renounces the fruits of action, which means the result. Renounces the result does not mean that you will stop taking salary from your boss. Why? I am renounced. I work, don't give me salary. No. You get it. But the spirit of enjoying that, this is mine, aham mameti. Ye mera hai, ye tera hai. This duality has to be given up. That's what Krishna says. But he who renounces the fruits of action is called one who has truly renounced. This is Mr. Alfred Ford, grandson of Henry Ford. I've intentionally included his photo over here, despite being on a very high position within the Ford Motors. He's a direct grandson of Henry Ford, so must be on some executive board position like that, or part of that. Yet, while performing his corporate duty, he continues to perform his spiritual responsibilities. This individual alone have contributed 300 crore rupees for the ongoing project of the biggest temple in the world known as Temple of Vedic Planetarium. He has contributed his results. It is so difficult for people today just to part away with any amount of money. When they work, they think money is for me only. And here he set such a brilliant example. Despite handling his corporate responsibilities, he is a true renouncer. 300 crore rupees is not some 300 rupees or 3000 rupees. He has contributed major chunk of his wealth or majority of it in the fulfillment of Srila Prabhupada's dream project, which is coming up in Mayapur. If any one of you have gone, it's almost done. External looks like exactly like this. Right now, internal interior works is going on. It's more than 700-800 crore project. The biggest temple all over the world is going to be like this. So that's the idea. What is true renunciation? So Arjuna said, well, renouncing action seems easy than renouncing the results. When you work, you get attached to the result. मैंने काम किया है, ये मेरा फल है. जब जिसने काम ही नहीं करा, तो वो फल की इच्छा क्या रखेगा? Yes or no? So, if you go out and work in the corporate house, you get some salary, then we become very attached to the idea, this is mine, because I have worked for it. So therefore, Arjuna raised the question, my dear Lord, how can I not be attached to the results of my actions? How many of you agree is a valid question? Raise your hand. सारी मेहनत मैंने करी और मुझी को आप कह रहे हो आसक्त ना हो, कैसे नहीं हो सकते? Agreed? How many of you are eager to know what Krishna says? और डरे भी हुए हो, क्या बोल देंगे भगवान ना जाने आगे कैसा? Well, Krishna says, my dear sons and daughters, or my dear Arjuna, you are not even the doer of your action. You're not even the doer of your action. You think you're doing something. Let me tell you who performs an action. And then I'll explain you. I'll give you some examples and then I'll ask you, do you agree or disagree? Krishna says, there are not one, there are 5 kartas. How many? 5 doers. And when all these 5 doers are aligned together, then you get the result. If one of the doer is not aligned, how much ever hard work you put, you will never get a result. Is there anyone here who have had an experience where you put a lot of endeavor, but your desired result wasn't achieved? Please raise your hand. Raise your hand high up. अभी आपको पता है कि कौन जिम्मेदार था उसका? I'll tell you who. Because among the 5, 1 or 2 or 3 maybe did not supported you. So question is, who are these 5 doers? Krishna says, first doer is adhishtanam, the place of action, body. We perform action through body. So this is the first doer. Okay, that we have engaged, no problem. All right. Second is karta, performer, which means the soul, desire. All right, the soul have desired. That is another. Third is karanam, the senses. Imagine somebody wants to become, relay race or, athlete or, something like that where you need a great physical strength. You may be good at it also, but tomorrow if you meet an accident, you fracture your leg and the doctor says, no, you cannot really run. So do you agree your senses are not giving you support? Agree? That's the point here. Karana means senses. This is the third factor. Fourth, Krishna says, is cheshta, the effort to move the senses. And the fifth, now imagine you have all 4. Let's say getting a promotion. Is there anyone who had been disappointed once in a while in their corporate life where they really expected a promotion, didn't happen, but really worked hard for it? Raise your hand. ये 100% होगा. A corporate like a standard rule है, कभी ना कभी तो निराश करेगी करेगी. सबका experience है. And how many of you felt, I really worked for it. I gave my best. And on top of it, वो कहते हैं ना जले पे नमक छिड़कना. Somebody else gets a promotion who was rascal all through the year, who hardly did anything. Anyone of you had that experience? And then you get the message he or she got. And yeah, what did she do? Or he do? We have that experience? Okay, let's take a look what happened. Promotion. Place of body, you engage your body. karta, performer, you had a desire, you really focused, you want a promotion, you really worked hard for it. Karanam, you engage your senses, your mind, hand, legs, everything. And cheshta, you made an endeavor. Everything was in sync. One thing was missing. What is that one thing? Any guesses? What is that? What is that? What is that? And that is Daivam. The approval from the Supreme Lord. Yes or no? If you still are confused, my question is, when all these four things were aligned, then what could be the only reason why it didn't work out? All these four were aligned, we did it, but still did not happen. And I already gave an example. Even imagine you have other things aligned with you, but imagine if your body has got a defect. If your adhishthanam is damaged, your leg is injured or something, then you cannot take part in an athletic competition, isn't it? So if any of these things are not aligned with your karta, which means the soul who desires, your wish will not be fulfilled. So, in any company we have what you call as share ko kya kehte hain? Shares kehte hain na? Company share, right? And who would have the maximum shares of the company would be the owner of the company. So Arjuna asked, my dear Lord, how can I not be attached to the results of my action? Krishna said, well, what do? You do nothing. Please tell me how much percentage is your share in any result that you get according to this mathematics here. Where are you in this picture? You are karta, the soul. How much percentage of share do you have in any result which is produced? How many of you agree? 1/5? A 1/5 wala is trying to claim the ownership of the result. Does it make sense? Would such a person always remain frustrated? And that is why Krishna said, Arjuna, what are you claiming of? You're only 1/5 of the doer. For example, I might have said this example before also, but it really suits over here. And that example is, one of our sannyasis had visited a hospital to meet one of the devotees who were admitted there. And the CEO of the hospital, when he got to know such and such saintly person has come, so he said, let me go and have a talk with him. He met him, and then conversation turned into a little bit of this kind of, God exists or not, etc., etc. Finally, the doctor said, I am the God of the hospital. And the sadhu asked, why do you say so? He said, I decide. I am the savior of the lives of all the people here. I act to save the life, which means sab logo ka jaan main bachata hu, so I am the God. And then sadhu said, has ever there been a case where a patient would have died in your hospital? Doctor said, of course. Sadhu said, then you are the killer. If you claim the right that you are the protector of somebody, and if somebody dies in your hospital with that logic, which means you are the killer, then and there he understood he is not the doer. Simple example like that. So there are 5 causes of action, Arjuna. Therefore, one who thinks himself to be the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, certainly not very intelligent, and cannot see things as they are. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, although he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor is he bound by his actions. So like that, Krishna speaks. This is the second time he's repeating a similar concept, where Krishna says, do not unnecessarily get attached to the results of your action. You are not the doer. Rather, use the results of your action in the service of the Lord. That's how you purify yourself, and that's how you save yourself from the laws of the material nature. So, thus by working in a spirit of detachment, offering the results towards the transcendental goal, one can function in this world and simultaneously remain completely aloof. That is the definition of renunciation. So, Alfred Ford, while working, managing a company, yet he is one of the greatest renunciates because he engages everything in the service of the Lord. That's what renunciation. Renunciation is not giving up of the duty. So many times people get worried, oh, if my husband will join Bhagavad Gita class, would you go to the forest? So many times ladies get this worry. कहीं मेरा पति छोड़ के तो नहीं चलेगा? मैं भगवद गीता के कारण तो कभी छोड़ के नहीं जाएगा. Other reasons could be there that I don't know, that you both figure it out what could be there. For Bhagavad Gita, no way Krishna says give up. Krishna says never, never quit. Never quit. There's no question about it. All right, moving to the next part of the discussion here. So, after discussing about the summary of the concept of Karma Yoga, now Krishna will speak on the topic of modes of nature here. So, the flow of discussion is such: Krishna says, well, be detached. Do not get too much entangled with the life of this, or with the things of this world. And then Krishna, to further establish this idea why it is so important to cultivate detachment, then he speaks about the subject matter titled as modes of nature, where Krishna says, Arjuna, look around. You'll see everyone is so much caught up with the material life. They're trying to somehow survive in this harsh environment or harsh situation like this. And why? Because they're trying to survive and sustain themselves. Here, they all have entangled themselves in different modes of material nature: Sattva Guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna, which acts upon them based on their mentality. And how it acts, Arjuna? It determines the complete lifestyle of an individual. So much so, the knowledge of a person, his action, his nature of work, his understanding, his determination. Even happiness is determined by what mode is prominent in him and her. I would not get into the details, it will take time because that's not my theme for today. My theme is what is dharma that Krishna wants to establish. I will encourage all of you to read out at your leisure. I'll just give you one example to help you understand. Let's talk about happiness. What is the nature of happiness and goodness, passion, and ignorance? The nature of happiness and ignorance is the person finds satisfaction when he sees others suffering. You call such people in English as sadist. Have you come across sadists? When they really become happy when they trouble you. Their goal of life only is to create trouble in your life, and that's where they find happiness. Yes? This is called as mode of ignorance happiness, where the enjoyment is causing suffering to other. What is mode of passion happiness? Which is driven by intense desire, which means sense gratification. If my desires gets fulfilled, I am happy. If not, I am frustrated. What is the nature of happiness and goodness? By performing our duty. I have a duty to perform, and I live and act responsibility. I act responsibly, and from that, the satisfaction that is derived, that is said to be in mode of happiness. Have you seen people, who seems to be a little unaffected with what's going around, and they are very focused on their duty? उनको कहते हैं अपने धर्म के, अपने कार्य के प्रति बड़े निष्ठावान होते हैं. They day in day out continue doing their job without getting much bother about what's happening. They're very focused, and they seem to. How can you do something if you're not happy? Isn't it? That's the happiness that happens in mode of goodness. Mode of passion driven by sensual gratification. They work just to fulfill their desires. If it doesn't happen, they shift, they change their position. The moment they feel their sense gratification is hampered, they move from this location to another location. And the ignorance, where they derive happiness by creating troubles in the life of others. Like that, knowledge, action, work, understanding, everything about us is governed by the modes of material nature. So, when Krishna spoke about all this thing in details for a set of verses, then Arjuna asked, my dear Lord, what is the solution? How can I rise above all these modes of material nature? If your responses are determined by something else, you cannot call yourself Swatantra Desh ke Swatantra Nivasi. Yes or no? Is that a life of freedom? If your responses are governed by factors beyond you, then that is not an independent living. So Arjuna asks, how can I really experience independence of freedom? And then Krishna begins to speak about the concept of ideal worker. And here in this set of verses 41 to 55, another very fantastic subject matter, Krishna introduces his divine system. Krishna says, well, for the social ecosystem, it exists only in human civilization. You don't find it in animals or the birds and the beasts having some social structure or social ecosystem. And Krishna here introduces his divine social arrangement of the society where anyone and everyone in their situation is completely satisfied. And they are not living their life or wasting their life comparing their situation with another person and losing on the opportunity that they have for themselves to live their life by unnecessary comparing and competing with others. You getting a point? So, what could be that social structure where you can be content and happy within yourself and live happily, regardless of what others are in comparison to you? Not artificial, has to be natural, it cannot be imposed upon you. If it is artificial, then you can change it. But if it is natural, then obviously it's going to be healthy. And that divine arrangement of social society or social system is called as Varna Ashramaha. जिसको ब्रिटिशर्स ने हमें caste system समझाया. You know, casteism, this is the seed sowed by Britishers, which was later on which was later on exploited by the current day politicians starting from 1947, the moment we got independence. One of the major party of our country had been exploiting the members of this society on the name of caste, and we saw in the recent politics also how they wanted to divide the society on the name of caste. The one who talk about the caste the most blame other for having a caste divisive politics. Well, this is not like that. There was no concept of caste system. So what is this Varna and Ashrama? There are 4 types of ashram. First is Brahmachari ashram. Second is Grahastha ashram. Third is Vanaprastha ashram. Fourth is Sannyasa ashram. Out of 4, hardly any of them is surviving today. If any of these are surviving, it's just because of some surviving spiritual organizations and sadhus who have still maintained these ashrams. Ashram means which is God conscious. Prabhupada defines ashram means your house could be an ashram if it is centered around God and if you have God conscious lifestyle. That is ashram. What is Varna? Ashram is your personal choice. My choice, what I want to do, how I want to live. Varna is your occupational duty. And there are 4 kinds of occupational duties defined by Krishna. He created this creation, He gave everything. And based on our psychophysical nature, He gave 4 kinds of varnas. You could be on a Brahminical position performing Brahminical duties. You could be performing Kshatriya responsibility, Vaishya and Shudra. Who is a Brahmana? The intellectual class of the society. They can have the profession of lawyer, doctors, educator, priest, astrologers, etc. And the system was designed in such a way, this intellectual class of the society known by Brahmana could not accept a salary. The system was designed in such a way that there is no concept of salary for them. Then the second class of society is, or the next grade is called Kshatriyas, the administrative class. And it is their responsibility to maintain the Brahminical class. They give charity. Charity is given, not asked. They give the charity, and whatever they give, Brahmanas have to survive, be content with it, and Brahmanas will maintain the Kshatriyas by giving them the strength of wisdom. This is Brahmana Kshatriya. Pretty nice, interesting balance. Then how did Kshatriya would earn money? Kshatriya is an administrative class. Then there is Vaishya, the business class. They earn money and they pay taxes to the administrative class, and through the taxes, administrative class manages the society. What today you call as the political ecosystem, that comes in administrative class. Who takes taxes from? All of us, regardless of you are Brahmana, Vaishya, Shudra, whoever you are. So all of us are paying taxes. Even the spiritual organizations have to pay taxes. So that is Vaishya class. And then when you are into business, you need manpower to support in your... Now Brahmana you cannot hire. Kshatriya is an administrator. Then who works for you? That is Shudra. So Shudra is a labor class who works for a Vaishya. Vaishya makes some money, and Vaishya is the one class of the society which maintains Brahmana, Kshatriya and Shudras. They pay labor charges to Shudra, they pay taxes to administrators, the administrator gives charity to Brahmanas and maintains the Brahmanas. Do you see how this whole system is working? And there was a mutual dependency of each other on one another, and there was a complete harmony. If you have a Brahminical trait, you take to Brahminical responsibility. You have Kshatriya trait, you take Kshatriya responsibility. There was hardly ever a case in the history where a Brahmana thought, बोर हो गया हूं मैं Brahminical job से, अब मैं job role change करके Kshatriya बनूंगा. थोड़े समय के बाद बहुत बोरिंग है ये Kshatriya job, अब मैं वैश्य बनूंगा, वैश्य भी बहुत बोरिंग है, अब मैं शूद्र बनूंगा. हैव यू हर्ड? Very exclusive and remote cases would be there in the history of a culture where people would have changed their varna. Now look at all of you. How many of you are still thinking of changing jobs here? Please raise your hand. You understand that? You know, you're totally unsatisfied. If a person in the past would have been unsatisfied, then why would he stuck to his varna? And why are you changing because you're not satisfied? Now, where do you think in the four varna you come? Labor class? Yes or no? So what's wrong being labor class? There's no discrimination who you are. It's upon your predisposition, what you like to do, you act according to that. But the problem with the current ecosystem designed in such a way, everyone becomes a labor class. That is the problem. Because everyone is forced to become a labor class. Therefore, there is such a great dissatisfaction because your psychophysical nature may not be of a labor class. You might be of a Vaishya category, or maybe you may be of administrative, or maybe you may have Brahminical. Well, Brahminical qualities are very difficult to find today unless you have a training, but you still can have some Kshatriya, Vaishya traits. And therefore, I've seen so many times people after working for 20, 30 years in corporate house, they think, मैं कोई business start कर लूँ. मैंने कहा तेरा retirement का stage आ गया, नहीं पहले business start करके retire होऊंगा. So many times it happens like this. So this is our divisions of Varna and Ashrama. So Krishna says, this is my divine system of society, social order. If you act according to this, then you get gradually purified like this. And what is the result while acting in this Varnashrama? The result is Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na sochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param, which means you become fully joyful, na kankshati, equally disposed towards all living entities. That is the result which is guaranteed by somebody who goes through this Varnashrama system. What is the result of our current society that promises you? If you go through the current ecosystem, what would you become in the future? Let's say at the age of 60. Any guesses? What would be the situation at the age of 60 and beyond? Somebody who has gone through the ecosystem, have worked for 30, 40 years, struggled for his life, fully joyful or fully dash, dash, dash? What do you think? I mean, the Varnashrama guarantees, Krishna says, this is the words of Krishna. He says, this is what Varnashrama guarantees. What is the current society guarantees? Any guesses? Little happy? Fully frustrated? Sounds? You see I'm not saying anyone is wrong for that, but they just don't know what exactly to do with their life. You know, they become so short-tempered. The nature is you grow old like that. That's just because how with the system we are functioning, it produces other way around results. Fine. And then in such a situation, an individual automatically takes bhakti, becomes devoted to the Lord. And then Krishna says, very beautiful verse. Please repeat after me. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha tatomam tattvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. One can understand me as I am, the Supreme Personality Godhead, only by devotion service. And when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion he can enter into the kingdom of Godhead. Vishate tad anantaram. This is the constant theme across all the conversations in different chapters. Krishna says, what is the goal of life? Vishate tad anantaram. Come back to me, back home, back to Godhead. Before you can come back home, back to Godhead, Krishna says, first of all, you have to become devoted to me. And to be able to become devoted to me, then Krishna says, what is the process of purification, engagement, etc., etc. So Prabhupada, that is a beautiful thing. What is the mystery of bhakti in this particular purpose? Prabhupada says, no one can understand God simply by scholarship or speculation. Only one who is actually engaged in Krishna consciousness and devotional service can understand what Krishna is. University degrees are not helpful. Somebody says that I am PhD, permanent head damage, what to do? But nonetheless, it's not going to help. It's not going to solve the problem. It's not your scholarship that helps you understand the subject matter. It's your engagement in bhakti which helps you understand what bhakti is. And now Krishna is coming to the conclusion on the subject matter of bhakti. Where now Krishna says, In spiritual life, every element, every action, every task that we do has only one goal: how to cultivate love of Godhead. Krishna says, Arjuna, it is of greatest importance that you work under my protection, which means we should directly follow Lord's instruction as been given in Parampara and live our life. And what Krishna says, I personally protect my devotee from all reactions and lead him directly to my supreme abode. So you don't have to stop your actions, continue performing your actions as I'm asking you to do your duties, and I will take care of you entirely. Do not worry. Srila Prabhupada writes, one should follow the order of the Lord, which means through the direction of Krishna's representative Guru and through the words of Krishna in Shastras. Arjuna thought, my dear Lord, what if I fail to follow your orders? What if I wish to act independently? What if I wish to act outside of what you have taught in Bhagavad Gita? How life should be lived, you have taught in Bhagavad Gita, but I want to live my own life the way I want to do it. What would happen in that situation? Then Krishna says, Arjuna, every one of us have to make an inner choice. We have the choice to make. Now we are coming to the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. We have to make a decision. And soon Krishna is going to ask Arjuna, Arjuna, yatha ichchasi tatha karu. Now you make a choice. Pick your choice. So Krishna says, well, all of us have to make a choice to serve Krishna or turn away from Krishna. Throughout Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's main dilemma is whether to fight or not. But here Krishna explains that Arjuna will fight anyway. And Krishna says, Arjuna, if you choose not to follow my order, you will pass all obstacles, otherwise you'll be bound. If you choose to live according to my instructions, which means you perform your duty of a Kshatriya, although you perform karma, but you will not get any reactions. However, if you go to the forest, on your own perform something over there, then you will definitely get bound by the laws of material nature. Okay? Your duty, Arjuna, is to fight. And even if you try to abandon your duty to fight, the modes will force you to do it. Simple example. Any one of you have had any recent or maybe a long memory experience where for a day you took a break and you had no engagement? And if in case there was a situation like this, how many of you realize you were so restless and disturbed? How can I be idle? I need to do something. Anyone have that experience? When you were idle, you had nothing to do and you were becoming so restless. I need to do something. Yes or no? That is what Krishna is saying. Arjuna, you are conditioned by the modes. You are supposed to act. You cannot not act. So choice is you act according to the modes or act according to my instruction. Alright? If you do not follow my orders, you will follow the orders of lower nature like puppet, which means you will follow the orders of material nature, and then you suffer and struggle again. Therefore, Krishna says, Arjuna, therefore, you should surrender to the Lord. Why should surrender? Krishna once again makes his case. Beautiful subject matter. Please repeat loudly. Ishvara sarva bhutanam. Ishvara sarva bhutanam. Hrideshe Arjuna tishtati. Brahmayam sarva bhutani. Yantrarudhani mayaya. Very interesting concept Krishna is saying. The Supreme Lord, Ishvara, Sarva Bhutanam means all living entities. Hirdesha, Arjuna Tishtati. Tishtan is residence. Where does the Supreme Lord resides? Krishna says, in all living entities' heart, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is residing as Super Soul Paramatma. Brahmayam Sarva Bhutani Yantrarudhani Mayaya. And by his direction, the living entity seated on the seat of this vehicle is moving at different places. The Supreme Lord, seated in the heart of every living entity, is directing the wanderings of all living entities was seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Very simple example. All of you would have driven a vehicle. The type of vehicle that you sit on, you are now restricted by the capacity of that vehicle, yes? If you're sitting on a helicopter, then you have the capacity to move around whatever the capacity helicopter offers. If you're sitting in a four-wheeler, then your capacity gets limited according to the limited capacity of four-wheeler, which has to ply on the road, unlike the helicopter can fly. And if you're sitting on a Luna, then better you walk. That will be more comfortable than to drive a Luna. I'm just joking. So point is, if you are on Luna, then again your capacity becomes very limited. So your capacity to act or not act depends on the vehicle that you're sitting. Therefore, Krishna says, Arjuna, everyone has been given a vehicle like this body. If a Jivatma has got a body of a dog, he is forced to act like a dog. Yes or no? If a Jivatma has got a body of a fly or a mosquito, has to act like a fly or mosquito. Except for the human species, you cannot educate and train anyone in the subject matter of spiritual life. You can train them to do something, but you cannot train them on the subject matter of spiritual life. Only human life has that prerogative where they can inquire, why do I suffer? What happens after death? So Krishna says, like this, I assign Jivatma which body, which vehicle they will get after the death. All of you sitting here have received this vehicle called as body, human body. Did you choose it for yourself? Anyone here chose the body that they have? Anyone chose the parents that they have? Or even did the parents choose a son or daughter? Or even they would survive through the whole process of pregnancy? Any control? Who has that control? Krishna says, Brahmaya sarvabhutani yantrarudhani maya. It is I who controls it. And Prabhupada is a fantastic purport. Prabhupada says, the living entity gets what it deserves and is carried by the material body, which is created in the material energy under the direction of the super soul. As soon as a living entity is placed in a particular type of body, he has to work under the spell of that bodily situation. Once again, as soon as a living entity is placed in a particular type of a body, he has to work under the spell of that bodily situation. An example, a person seated in a high-speed motor car goes faster than one seated in a slow car. Though the living entities, the drivers may be the same. Then Prabhupada says, similarly, by the order of the Lord, material nature fashions a particular type of body to a particular type of living entity so that he may work according to his past desires. So based on your desires, you have been given a particular vehicle. The living entity is not independent. One should not think himself independent of the Supreme Personality Godhead. The individual is always under the Lord's control. Therefore, one's duty is to surrender, is to take shelter of the Lord, and that is the injunction of the next verse. Now, Krishna concludes his conversation. After putting his case, Krishna says, Iti te jnanamakhyatam guhyat guhyataram maya vimrashyetad asheshena yatha ichchasi tatha kuru. I want you to pay attention for a second here now. Imagine you're having a conversation, maybe with your wife, husband, son, parent, anyone. They are in little troubled situation. They are seeking guidance from you. And you're talking to them what to do, what not to do. After a long conversation, after explaining whatever you had to explain him or her, then you say, my dear son, daughter, whatever, मुझे आपको जो जो बताना था, मैं सब कुछ बता चुका हूं. अब आप निर्णय लो. What is the meaning of this dialogue? What is the possible thing can happen next? I am done. You choose whatever you want to do. Two things. The most important theme now comes, going back to the dharma. I'll bring dharma now here. First thing is, when Krishna says surrender, please understand, Krishna is not an autocrat. Krishna respects your free will. What he says, yatha ichchasi tata karu. When we hear the word surrender, we get frightened with the word of surrender because we are too much burnt out with the material relationships. We think surrender means no free will, no freedom. No, Krishna says surrender is for your good. I am not going to ask you, I am going to tell you what is good and wrong. You choose what you want to do for yourself. Is that clear? First thing is that he does not interfere in our free will. Now, Krishna have already spoken what he wanted to speak. And you know what he said? Guhya guhyataram maya. Guhyataram. Guhya guhyatara guhyataram. Confidential, more confidential, most confidential. मैंने आपको सबसे गोपनीय ज्ञान दे दिया है. अब आप सब जानते हैं. अब आप निर्णय लीजिए. And here comes the beauty. And this is the most beautiful part of Bhagavad Gita. Just try to understand what's going on in Krishna's head and his heart. If you love somebody dearly and you know very well what should be the right course of action for him or her, but you cannot interfere in his or her free will, would you not again insist, my dear friend, please let me tell you, I know you have to make your own decision, but please understand, in what situation would you beg somebody? Only when you really love that person and you want that person to do the right thing, yes or no? Otherwise, you would not beg. Bhaiya, let's say you go to a doctor and doctor gives you medicine and you say, I'm not going to eat. No problem. Give my bill and go away. भाई तू मेरा बिल दे तू जाए यहाँ से. खाना नहीं खाना तेरी जिम्मेदारी है. There's no love. But when somebody loves, he's going to beg you, please see what is the right decision. First thing. Second thing, if you look at Bhagavad Gita as established in the beginning, dharma, the law, is established in general by, we say, by Shastra. Somebody does a criminal activity, you put him behind the bar and you punish him, right? And if you look at the life of Krishna, Krishna had used Astra Shastra enough. Plenty of time. So many demons he had killed. For with what objective? Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya cha dushkratam. Vinash of dushkratam. For what? Dharma samsthapanarthaya. Even by killing hundreds and millions of demons, yet dharma was not established. How? After killing the last demon which was killed by Krishna was Dantavakra. Krishna was around 75 years of age. And it is just the time before he went Vrindavan for the last and the first time, returned. And he took a vow, I have killed all the demons, I am not going to pick my weapon. And see, after that he has not picked his weapon. In fact, at the battle of Kurukshetra, he took a vow, I will not pick a weapon. I mean, why would Krishna say like this? Somebody asked him to not to pick a weapon. He himself said, you take my Narayani Sena, I will not pick a weapon. What is the logic about it? Because Krishna, 15 years ago, had given a promise to the Vrajavasis, I have fought enough, now all the demons are killed, I will not lift a weapon again. He took a promise. You know what happened after that? Right after that happened, that Asat Sabha, where Draupadi was insulted publicly, was Dharma established? If Dharma would have established, how that insult could have happened to Draupadi? What happened? Then Pandavas were cheated of everything and they were sent to the forest. Was Dharma still established? Yes, through the Astra and Shastra, Dharma was established to certain part of the world, but not entirely. And even if it would have been established, it would have been established till the time Lord would have been there. Because once Lord would have concluded his pastimes with Astra Shastra, somebody else would have come and would have been a demonic nature. Yes? How is Dharma established? Now, somebody may say, Prabhuji, but in Kurukshetra also, weapon, the art of killing was happening, so many people were killed. Even if you see there, Krishna said, Arjuna, become nimitta matram bhave savesachi. You become the instrument of my grace. Of what? Punishing the culprits. But not exactly for establishing the dharma. Dharma to I will only establish through you, where you become the one who asked me question and I'll answer you. And look what Yamraji tells to Yamdutas. Beautiful verse. Please repeat after me. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam Nave vidurishyo napi devaha. Nasa siddha mukhya asura manushyaha. Kutascha vidyadhara charanadhya. ये यमराज जी के शब्द हैं और यमराज जी कह रहे हैं धर्म तो साक्षात भगवत प्रणीतम, धर्म की स्थापना भगवान के अलावा और कोई नहीं कर सकता, चाहे वो ऋषि हो, चाहे देवता हो, सिद्ध पुरुष हो, असुर हो, मनुष्य हो, विद्याधर हो, चरणाधेय हो, कोई भी हो। धर्म की स्थापना तो सिर्फ भगवान करते हैं और धर्म की स्थापना हुई वह है भगवत गीता के माध्यम से, जहां भगवान धर्म की स्थापना करते हैं। उस प्रकार से, उस उद्देश्य से भगवद गीता बोली गई। That was the objective for which Bhagavad Gita was spoken. Now my question again is, what is dharma? Again, dharma has a different levels of understanding. What is the highest dharma that Krishna establishes through Bhagavad Gita? One dharma is perform your duty without attachment, correct? That is also dharma. One dharma is engage in your constitutional position, serve the Lord. That is also dharma. What is the supreme most dharma that Krishna is establishing? And pay attention to this verse. This is the real beauty and real gem. After speaking the most confidential knowledge, you know what Krishna says? 18th chapter, verse number 64. Please repeat after me. Sarva guya tamam bhuya shrunu me paramam vachaha ishtu asi me dridhamiti tato vakshyami te hitam. Look at every word that Krishna is using here. Sarva guhyatamam. Guhya, guhyatara, guhyatamam. Krishna is saying sarva guhyatamam. Now the highest confidential knowledge. Arjuna, मैं अब आपको supreme most confidential knowledge देने वाला हूँ. अर्जुन बोलेगा क्यों दोगे? आपने तो सब बोल दिया. नहीं नहीं नहीं. Because in the previous verse, Arjuna, Krishna said ना, यथा इच्छसि तथा करो. Arjuna, you do whatever you want. Krishna said, wait a second. Bhuya, I will say again. I would say again. Shrinu me paramam vacha. Please hear from me. Paramam vacha, the highest instruction. Why should I hear from you, my dear Lord, when you already gave me the choice to choose what I want, I should do it? You know what Krishna says? He's pleading Arjuna. Now what he says? Ishto asime dradam iti. Arjuna, you are very dear to me. Ishto asi means, Arjuna, I love you. I care for you. Please hear from me. Tato vyakshyami te hitam. Kyun? Because I speak for your benefit. Because I speak for your benefit. Krishna here is saying, Arjuna, please, as I said, when you have love, if you see somebody making a wrong choice, you'll plead to him, please hear to me again. And that is what Krishna is saying here. And do you know what he says? Because he says, now I'm going to speak the Sarva Guhyatamam Paramam Vacha. You know what is the highest word he speaks? Let me see if I have here. Yes. You know what is that? Now, okay, wait. Before we come to that verse. Now, which means he is about to speak the Paramam and Sarva Guhyam, which is higher, which means this is the Dharma which he wants to establish. Because he's speaking Bhagavad Gita for the establishment of Dharma. And what is the definition of Dharma? Let's take a look. Krishna says, the very next verses, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyajimam namaskuru mam evashasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. This is the only instruction in Bhagavad Gita which is repeating twice. First, it repeated in 9th chapter, where Krishna said, Idam te guhyatamam. आपको मैं सबसे गोपनीय ज्ञान देने वाला हूं, वो भी यही था. And सब कुछ बोलने के बाद जब अर्जुन का बोला यथा इच्छसि तथा करो, then he said, please listen for me, the sarva guhyatamam knowledge, paramam vacha, the highest. Why? Ishto asime. I love you, I care for you. And what is this instruction? It is for your benefit. And then again Krishna says, Man mana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Become my devotee, render service unto me. This is the definition of dharma. To fall in love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the message of Bhagavad Gita, is the message of our ancient knowledge system, which was spoken by Krishna at the first to Sun God, and through Parampara it has come, and we all have received in the Parampara through Srila Prabhupada ji. The goal of life, the goal of Dharma is to develop love of Godhead. Prabhupada writes, the most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna. Always think of him, act for him. One should not become an official meditator. Life should be so molded that one will always have the chance to think of Krishna. One should always act in such a way that all his daily activities are in connection with Krishna. He should arrange his life in such a way that throughout the 24 hours he cannot but think of Krishna. And the Lord's promise is that anyone who is in such pure Krishna consciousness will certainly return to the abode of Krishna, where he will be engaged in the association of Krishna face to face. Pratijani priyosimi, because you are very dear friend of mine. Once again, Krishna says, Arjuna, you're very dear to me, therefore I am giving you the highest and best. And now Krishna concludes, where Krishna says, Arjuna, give up all kinds of religious affiliations. Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo om mokshaya shami ma suchaha. Give up all religious affiliation inclinations. Give up all that. Just take my shelter. Krishna says to Arjuna, I promise you, I'll take care of you. I will protect you. I'll set you free from all anxieties in your life. Give up everything. This is the message of Bhagavad Gita, for which Krishna orchestrated this whole incident where Krishna can speak. So Bhagavad Gita still continues with last few verses where Krishna says, what is the final essential teachings? Krishna has just completed speaking Bhagavad Gita. Now what should be done with jewels of this wisdom words spoken by the Lord? Should they be kept secretly or distributed widely? If they should be distributed, then who is qualified to receive them? What result comes to one who hears, like all of you have heard, who studies, or who preaches these words of Krishna? What results are there for you and for me, who studied, who heard, and who preached? And that Krishna says, first of all, who is qualified to hear the message of Bhagavad Gita and understand? One who is austere, who is devoted, who engages in devotional service, who is not envious of Krishna, can only understand message of Bhagavad Gita. What happens to those who preaches, who teaches the message of Bhagavad Gita? Krishna says, devotional service, bhakti, love of Godhead is guaranteed. At the end of this life, such a person who preaches the message of Bhagavad Gita will go back home, back to Godhead. He becomes dearmost servant of Krishna. So we already have our paycheck signed by the Lord. This is a promise Krishna is giving upfront in Bhagavad Gita. And though what happens to those of us who's studying and listening to Bhagavad Gita? Krishna has signed a paycheck for them also. Krishna says they will worship. So discussing and hearing about Bhagavad Gita is worship of the deity, but through one's intelligence. So through this process of hearing and reading, we worship Krishna through intelligence. Become free from sinful reactions, and we advance spiritually. And after this, Krishna finally said, so what have you understood, Baba? What is your choice now? You want me to speak Bhagavad Gita again? Or have you made up your mind? Arjuna says, my dear Lord, please repeat. Nashtamoha smriti labdha tvat prasadan mayachyuta sito asmi gata sandeha karshe vachanam tava. Nashtamoha smriti labdha, my illusion is destroyed. Smriti labdha, I have regained my intelligence. Tvat prasadan mayachyuta, by your causeless mercy. Sthiti, sito asmi gata sandeya, I am not firmly situated in my occupational duty. Karishye vachanam tava, I shall follow whatever you say. I take a vachan. Karishye vachan, whatever you say, my Lord, I shall follow. So one who studies and understands Bhagavad Gita, what happens? Their delusion or illusion is taken away. They regain their intelligence or memory, our eternal relationship with the Lord. They become firm and free from all kind of doubts in their life, and they're prepared to act according to Krishna's instruction. Finally, Sanjay speaks, and at the end of Bhagavad Gita, in the 78th verse, Dhritarashtra asked, Sanjaya, you also heard what Krishna spoke to Arjuna. Do you think, or what do you think, which party will win the war? Would Pandavas win or Kauravas win? Because that's how it started. Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyusava Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kaim Akarurvata Sanjaya. उसने तो ये पूछा था पांडव और कौरव क्या कर रहे हैं. संजय ने तो भगवद गीता सुना डाली. Because that's what happened at the beginning. And now after hearing the whole Bhagavad Gita and after hearing the description of Virat Rupa where he saw how Virat Rupa killed all the Kauravas, now Dhritarashtra asked Sanjaya, what do you think? Should we trust Krishna? Do you think what he said was correct? Is it true my son's going to die? What do you think? What do you think what Sanjay would have said? Sanjay is an advisor for Dhritarashtra. Dhrit का नाम वही है. Dhritarashtra means मतलब अव्वल दर्जे का गधा. मतलब कुछ भी कर लो चेतना में बदलाव आएगा ही नहीं. सब कुछ सुनने के बाद ही बोलेगा हाँ बस करूँगा वही जो मैं चाहूँगा. यथा इच्छसि तथा करूँ. अरे वो कंक्लूजन नहीं है. करिष्ये वचनम तवा. कंक्लूजन ये है मैं वो करूँगा जो भगवान चाहते हैं. So Dhritarashtra, Sanjay, what is your conclusion? Which party do you think will win the war? Because that was his objective. And Sanjay said, all right, let me tell you who will win. Please repeat. The last verse of Bhagavad Gita. Yatra yogeshwara krishno yatta partha dhanudharaha tatra vijayo bhute Dhruvani te matir mama. Mati, mama, according to me. You're asking who will win? You're asking what's the conclusion according to me? Let me tell you. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, wherever Yogeshwara, the master of mystics, Yogeshwara Krishna, wherever Krishna, the master of mystics, Yatra Panato Dhanurdhara, wherever there is son of Pratha Arjuna, Dhanurdhara, the best of the moment, Tatra, there, Yatra, where, Tatra, there, Shri, opulence. Vijayo, victory. What? Yes. Abhi aage suno. Because he was interested who will win. He says Pandava is going to win. Tatra Shri, opulence, Vijaya, कहते हैं victory. Bhutir, opulence. Dhruva, Nitir. Dhruva means morality. No, sorry, Nitir means morality. Matir, Mato. Four things would be there. Where Krishna and Arjuna are present. Opulence, victory, कहते हैं Bhutir, opulence. Shri is beauty, if I'm correct. What is that? Opulence. हाँ, Shri is opulence. Vijay is कहते हैं victory. Bhutir means power, extraordinary power, and Nitir means morality. So Krishna, Arjuna, Sanjay said, my dear Dhritarashtra, my dear king, wherever Krishna Arjuna is present, there's going to be victory, there's going to be opulence, there's going to be extraordinary power, and there's going to be morality. Hence I conclude, whatever you do, final match में victory तो पांडवा की ही होनी है. And like this, the Bhagavad Gita concludes. The final words before we part away with our study of Bhagavad Gita. Knowledge and understanding of Bhagavad Gita is dependent upon one's consciousness. Krishna spoke about who is eligible, who is austere, who is devoted, who is engaged in devotional service, who is non-envious. These are the four qualifications Krishna said. Only one who approaches these sacred teachings with proper mood, lifestyle, will be able to fully comprehend the deep and profound meanings. How do you approach them? With a proper mood and lifestyle. Third, by hearing and studying this conversation with such favorable temperament, one perceives the spiritual dimension as a tangible reality, which means the spiritual reality is a fact. When he has a favorable mood of studying, then he understands the spiritual dimension of life, and his life becomes exciting and wondrous at every step. Many times people ask, how do you see your life? I say, I see my life as an adventure. Every day is a new journey. Thus, to share this wisdom with society at large. What do we do with this knowledge? We study and we share. Thus, to share this wisdom with society at large constitutes the greatest welfare work in the entire universe. Therefore, you might have seen how ISKCON devotees or members are so eager to distribute Bhagavad Gita anywhere and everywhere, because this is the instruction of Lord Shri Krishna. So here we have come to the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, this whole series of Gita Unplugged, which marks the final episode today and also the last episode of our Saturday evenings program. We are concluding our Saturday evening program. Next weekend onward, there won't be any Saturday evening program here. But all of you are welcome to join us on our Sunday evening programs, where right now we are discussing about relationship management. Next week we'll continue with the relationship management, and then we'll continue with our theme and series of Krishna in Mathura and then Krishna in Dwarka. That's what will be the discussion. We'll resume our Saturday evening programs after Janmashtami. So you're welcome to join us for Sunday evening. But in the meantime, somebody who has studied Bhagavad Gita, what is he supposed to do? Bhagavad Gita is not a philosophical treatise. It is not an academic book. You read and you solve an assignment, get a certificate and walk away. Bhagavad Gita is a life's manual which instructs us on some practical actions with which a change can be brought about in our life. Therefore, Krishna says, Iti te jnanam akyatam ghuyat ghuyataram maya vimashyaitat asheshena yatha ichhasi tatha kuru. So this is now Krishna speaking to each one of us. My dear sons and daughters, I have spoken whatever I had to speak to you. All of you now decide what path you want to choose for yourself. So all of you have already chosen some lifestyle which you have for yourself. Let me introduce to you a spiritual life, what a spiritual life is all about, or how can you accept it while continuing with your regular affairs. Srila Prabhupada introduces a very simple formula to imbibe the teachings of Bhagavad Gita in one's life, and it is called as ABCD formula. So what is an action point after Bhagavad Gita? We now need to take to ABCD. What is A? A begins with association of saintly people. When we begin our journey, a spiritual journey, at times we are mocked, criticized by our same family members and the friends with whom we have grown up until now. And they'll come and tell you, oh, बहुत बड़े बाबा जी बन गए हो आप, बहुत धार्मिक हो गए हो जी, बहुत मंदिर जाते हो. And in such situation in life, we might find ourselves feeling lonely, because at the end of the day, all of us need some friends. So first A is association of saintly people. Srila Prabhupada writes in one of the purposes why he created International Society for Krishna Consciousness is to give an opportunity to help you find a like-minded people and friends, so that when the rest of the society gives up hope on you, hey, this fellow has become useless, he doesn't come to pub and bar with us, etc., etc. So you have your friends, like-minded friends. So please make sure you continue in contact, in association with such kind of weekly programs. Mingle around, make friends. And the best way to make friends is join us for our retreats and yatras that we organize every quarterly and semi-annually. It's a need for our well-being. Now we've got some spiritual friends, wonderful. Then then Prabhupada says the next action item which all of us should take is reading wisdom literatures. Now, Krishna in the 4th chapter speaks about the quality of this transcendental knowledge. And all through the Bhagavad Gita, he makes 3 different analogies. First analogy he makes about this transcendental knowledge of wisdom literature is compared to a lamp. Just like the lamp dissipates the darkness and helps you see any obstacle on your way, similarly the transcendental knowledge helps you tread your journey of life in this world, giving you a right enlightenment. That is about the lamp. Second, Krishna compares in the 15th chapter this transcendental knowledge to the sword. By the weapon of knowledge, pick it up and cut your strong bonds of attachment to this material world. And thirdly, Krishna, in the another chapter, he compares this transcendental knowledge to a boat, which helps you ply through the turbulent ocean of material life and safely takes you across this material life to the coast of spiritual home, back to Godhead. Therefore, these words and the writings of Srila Prabhupada, which he wrote in the forms of his books, are not alone his realizations. Prabhupada many times said, what I have written is not what I want to write. Lord Sri Krishna and Acharyas have dictated through me, and these books have now been published in that manner. And therefore, whoever has read this book have undergone tremendous transformation. Take an action point you decide for your life. Please make sure every day you at least take out 15 minutes for yourself to read and try it. And I can tell you, you will experience the change just like Arjuna felt in association with Krishna. By reading Prabhupada books, you'll find yourself in a close connection with Lord Shri Krishna. Third action item is C for chanting. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or Lord Shri Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared 500 years ago and gave the various easiest process to come in direct contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is just chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In fact, it is said the holy names of the Lord are non-different to the Lord. The moment you chant the holy names, we may not have that realization as of today, but we are in direct association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, such kind of meditation, chanting of the holy names of the Lord, is the best form of dharmic practice. All rituals, waving of your hands, offering all kinds of incense and etc. is nowhere in comparison to the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Everyone should do that. And finally, diet. Speaks about food in 17th chapter, food in goodness, passion, ignorance. But prior to all that, Krishna speaks about food in the 3rd chapter. Food is extremely important for our well-being. In fact, Krishna says, Yagna Shishta Shano Shanto Muchanti Sarva Kilvishaha Punjate Te Tu Agam Papa Te Pachanti Atma Karanat. Even if you eat vegetarian diet, but if it is done for your own sense pleasure, you're only eating sin. आप केवल पाप ग्रहण कर रहे हैं. कुछ भी खाने से पहले वेजिटेरियन डाइट पत्रम पुष्पम फलम तोयम यो मे भक्त्या प्रचति. What can be offered to Krishna is vegetarian diet, and every vegetarian diet that we honor should be first offered to the Lord. And by this simple process of offering to the Lord, Lord by his mere glance removes all material contaminations and he spiritualizes the food. Now you may say, how can the food become spiritualized when it looks as it is, as it was before? It's a simple example is when you keep the iron rod in a burning fire, it still is an iron on. The difference is now it's burning hot. You may not understand, but once you touch it, it is extremely hot. Similarly, by the process of offering bhoga to the Lord, Krishna says, Yakna Shishta Shanaha Shanto. Shanto means Buddhiman Vyakti. Muchanti Sarva Kilvishaha. They become free from all sinful reactions because they eat Krishna Prasad. And these are the 4 things which is the gist of Bhagavad Gita. This is the gist of Dharma. And when we follow association of saintly people, every day read Srila Prabhupada books, chant every day the holy names of the Lord, and eat Krishna Prasadam, we are on our journey developing Man Mana Bhava Mad Bhakto Madhyaji Mam. We are on the way of developing love of Godhead, and we are on our way going back home, back to Godhead, as Krishna spoke about again and again as the goal of the human form of life is to return back home, back to Godhead. With that, I thank all of you for your kind attention. Hare Krishna. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki. Any questions or any comments from anyone? Any doubt about the subject matter? Any doubt about the ABCD process? Yes. The lady here has a question, please. Yes, mother, what's your question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I have a doubt. When Krishna was narrating the whole Bhagavad Gita to Arjun, and at the last he showed his Virat Roop. So that time was Arjun prepared to see him in such a Virat Roop, or how come? I mean, was he scared that time?
Oh, yeah, he was frightened to see that scary
I mean,
farm.
all the way from first chapter he was narrating the knowledge why he got scared. I mean, what was that Virat Roop?
What was that Virat Roop? It was a very ghastly form where Krishna showed his form of a Kala Roop. Kala Roop is the devastating force of this creation, where in a Kal everything is destroyed, and in that Kal Roop he saw all the soldiers of the Kaurava side and all the soldiers from the Pandava side entering into the form of the Kala Murtiman, this Virat Roop, and this Virat Roop is munching them and chewing all these living entities, and the blood is oozing out of his body, mouth, and falling all over his body. And there are thousands and thousands of mouths, unlimited body, ferocious form. And like this, there was such a scary presentation of it, even Arjuna got frightened. Fell at his feet, my dear Lord. All right, enough of it. Please come back and show me your two-handed form. I don't want to see any more this Virat Roop of yours, like that. And why did he ask? He asked for various reasons. One of the reasons it is mentioned because he wanted to prove for all the time to come, if anyone, Tom and Dick and Harry, stand up and says, I am God, you can ask him, sir, थोड़ा विराट रूप दिखाओ ना, तभी विश्वास करेंगे. And second, he wanted because Krishna has spoken about his opulences. Arjuna was curious. You know, when you like somebody, you want to know more about that person. So Arjuna was curious to know about how these opulences look like. And therefore he asked Krishna to show his opulences in a Virat Roop form. All right?